This video has been brought to you by DataVinci Analytics Agency.
Hello there. Welcome back to DataVinci's YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be studying the role of cookies, UTM parameters, and click identifiers in marketing attribution. So we would be covering the following topics. Number one, we'd be understanding what exactly is attribution. Then we'd move on to understand what are cookies and where does the name come from. Similarly, we'll look at the UTM parameters and their significance in marketing attribution, followed by click identifiers and their significance in attribution again. After which, we'll have a look at some of the privacy updates regarding these parameters discussed in the video, which include the third-party cookie phase-out and the iOS 17 updates for the link tracking. After we've covered the privacy updates, we'll have a look at some of the improvements that you can make in your tracking so as to at least compensate for these privacy updates. Finally, we'll conclude with our learnings of this session. Talking about attribution, what exactly is attribution? Attribution is the act of giving credit to the different ads, clicks, and factors along a user's path to conversion. So how exactly would you give credit? For that, you would be using an attribution model. An attribution model can be as simple as a rule or a set of rules, or maybe even a data-driven algorithm that is powered by a machine learning algorithm in the back of the scene. So for example, you could just decide that the last touch point of the user will get the most credit, which we now know as the last click model. Or you could even say the first click or the first touch point that brought the user on the site would get the maximum credit. So something like that. You can even create your own custom attribution model using machine learning and different sorts of technique like that. GA4 by default uses the data-driven algorithm for assigning credit. And if you want to know more about attribution and attribution in GA4, check the link in the description. We've already made a detailed video on that. Understanding cookies. So where exactly does the name cookies come from? So you might have seen those fortune cookies, right, which contain a text within it as shown in this figure out here. So yeah, the cookies name comes from there. Cookies are nothing but small text files that are stored on the user's browser, and they contain information about the user such as the interactions with a website. There are two types of cookies that we need to understand for our purpose. Number one is the first-party cookie. The first-party cookies are created and managed by the website domain itself. So if you're visiting Amazon.com, any cookie that is related to Amazon.com, even the subdomains, would be considered as first-party cookies. On the other hand, third-party cookies are not limited to a single domain. Instead, they track the user's behavior across multiple domains so as to create a comprehensive picture of the user's behavior. So if you go onto your website and just check the number of cookies that you have, you might find cookies such as Google, Facebook, and so on. So these cookies are responsible for retargeting ads and so on. We'll talk about that a little more in detail in the coming slides. So how exactly does GA4 use cookies? The GTAG library of GA4 uses first-party cookies to distinguish the unique users and also the unique sessions from a single user. So it does not rely on third-party cookies as its primary tracking mechanism. Rather, it focuses on tracking user interactions such as their clicks, their form submissions, the number of video plays. Any meaningful user engagements are captured and analyzed for a better understanding of the user behavior. You might have seen the enhanced measurement events such as the page views, the clicks, and so on are automatically tracked by GA4. So why does GA4 want the event data? because it wants to create a user behavior profile for each user based on the events rather than relying on third-party cookies. So there are the two main cookies that GA4 places on your website in first-party context. Number one is the _GA cookie, which is used to distinguish users, and the _GA followed by the container ID or the measurement ID is used to persist the session state. So if I show you the cookies present on our website, so you can just click on inspect and go under application and find your domain and then look for the cookie. You can search for _GA, and as you can see, there are multiple cookies out here as we have multiple properties tracking data from here, and we also have some third-party cookies by Clutch. So Clutch, we have an iframe of Clutch, so they have placed their cookie out here. But this particular cookies are the ones that are placed by GA4 automatically, and they are used to identify the user and to even identify a particular session as well. Moving on to UTM parameters and their significance in attribution. So UTM stands for Urchin Tracking Module, and this is a particular code that is added to the end of your URL to track the performance of your marketing campaigns. Now you might wonder, where does this word Urchin Tracking Module come from? So interestingly, Urchin Analytics was a tool used to track the performance of your digital marketing campaigns, and this particular tool used UTMs to track campaign performance. Later on, Google bought over this tool and rebranded it as Google Analytics, and therefore the name UTM has stayed on from its predecessor. There are multiple UTM parameters that you can use. Number one, you could use the UTM source, UTM medium, UTM campaign, the content, the UTM term, ID, and source platform. All of these are translated in GA4 as the predefined dimensions such as the session source, the session medium, the session campaign, and so on. If you want to know how the UTM parameters would look like within GA4, what you can do is you can use GA4's campaign URL builder. Just click on this link and it will take you to the campaign URL builder. Just input your website, input the UTM parameters such as the source, medium, and the campaign name, and then you can just copy paste the URL generated and send a test hit, maybe just a page view, and go into the real-time reports of GA4 and check whether the source and medium is showing up correctly. If it is not, then just verify whether you've made some error in the code. Maybe you've added an additional parameter that is not allowed in the URL, and so on. Coming to a different type of query parameters that are helpful in attribution are click identifiers. These are mostly helpful for the ad platforms rather than the advertiser. So click IDs are nothing but an ID given to each click by the user. So when a user clicks on an ad, a new click ID is generated, and this particular click ID is sent back to the advertising platform either via the pixel or via the server-side integration, maybe via CAPI for Meta, or even enhanced conversions for Google Ads. And this particular ID is then used to attribute that conversion to the correct ad creative. Now let's talk about the privacy updates. First, let's understand the third-party cookie phase-out. So at the start of 2024, Google decided to deprecate 1% from the 1% of its users the third-party cookies, and that 1% accounted for almost 30 million Chrome users. So by the end of 2024, all of the Chrome users will not have third-party cookies. So this essentially is an end of third-party cookies, since, as you can see from this bar graph, Chrome has the largest market share in the web browsing market. So What exactly is the use of third-party cookies and why is there such a big fuss about it? So let's understand it by a simple diagram. For example, I am a user and I go to a website, say Amazon.com. On Amazon.com, I get there are some pixels that place cookie on my browser to just track my information, like to just maybe it's just a note, like the user came to the site and visited the clothes page. Okay. Once the user exits website A and goes to another website, say a blog website where they can display ads and all, the user sees an ad that is related to website A. And this happened because this personalized advertising was possible because of third-party cookies. How did website A and B communicate? Was with the help of third-party cookies. So if the user clicks back on the ad, they would be directed back to website A to maybe eventually convert. So this is the most primary use case of third-party cookies, and there are other use cases as well, but this has been the major one, which is retargeting. Now talking about the iOS 17 updates on link tracking, how is that going to impact the attribution? So according to the iOS 17 update, the click identifiers such as the GCLID, the FBCLID, the MSCLID, which are all click identifiers used by the advertising platforms, would be trimmed off the landing page URL. But the parameters that would remain are the UTM parameters and other platform parameters such as Pinterest, Epic, and Klaviyo's, TikTok, etc. So these parameters would remain, but the click identifiers would be trimmed off, but only from if the user is in private mode or from the Apple main links. So now that we've discussed all the privacy updates, you might have a question of how can we overcome them or how can we compensate for the loss of this particular tracking mechanism. So there are two ways you can do it. Number one, you can improve your tracking. And by improving our tracking, I mean improving the first-party campaign tracking. First of all, you need to make sure that you are placing UTM parameters every possible way, even on your ads or even in your YouTube. Perhaps if you're driving traffic from your YouTube channel to your landing page, then you need to have some UTM parameters embedded on it to give you better information about from where your traffic is coming and which particular group of users are converting more. Secondly, you should start sending hashed first-party data to ad platforms to improve the event quality and the match rate of the attribution. Thirdly, you can use GA4's event-based data model to quantify the engagement. We've made a video about this and we'll link that in the description as well on how you can quantify engagement and understand better on what type of users would convert instead of just spending money blindly. Now once your tracking is set up, you can now analyze your data yourself instead of using the pre-made attribution model. So you can leverage GA4's BigQuery integration to collect data and create your own custom attribution models to see if the data actually reflects what you're actually seeing in the ad platform or not. Secondly, you can activate the data you're collecting using CDPs and reverse ETLs to serve ads to specific audiences. So this can be done using CDPs such as RotherStack and Segment, and we'll be making more videos about that in the future, about how you can use the reverse ETL feature and send audiences to Facebook, Google Ads, and so on. So that is an overview of how you can improve your tracking in the current time. So coming towards a conclusion, we've learned that attribution is an act of assigning credit, and the credit assignment is dependent on an attribution model. GA4 primarily uses the data-driven algorithm for attribution models across all channels. Then we talked about cookies and how first-party cookies and third-party cookies are used, and why event-based data modeling is crucial for user tracking in GA4. Then we talked about the query parameters such as the UTM parameters and click identifiers and how they play an important role in attribution for both the advertiser and the ad platform. Finally, we talked about some of the privacy updates and how you as a user can improve your own tracking and analysis of the data that you collect. So that was all in this particular video. Thank you, and may the force be with you.